Hi, this is Keisha, the instructor. Thank you again for tuning in to my YouTube channel. If you have not subscribed to my channel yet, please subscribe to my channel and click the thumbs up um, and come back for more learning with Keisha, the instructor. Today we're going to talk about the 5 top functions for beginners. And just keep in mind, a function is also a formula. So you can use those terms interchangeably. So again, a function is a formula. If we click the formula tab, you notice we have to insert a function, and then we have the function library here as well. You can click this down arrow here, and you get some of you get the 5 top functions that we're going to talk about. You can also find them by going back to the Home tab, and way over here to the right hand corner we have this down arrow, we have the auto sum, and if you click the down arrow you'll see those same formulas, or what we're saying, functions, and we're going to just talk about each one of those um, as briefly as I can. So let's start with the sum. So you guys notice I have some data, some numbers formatted within the worksheet. And I have each of the 5 top functions, and I have them first located in the rows. So row 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. And you can have these in any area you want on the worksheet. But I've also chosen to put the 5 functions on the columns as well. Remember, the columns are alphabet, so I have them in column P, Q, R, S, and T. So we have the sum, average, max, min, and count. So they're kind of basically self-explanatory, but the sum is going to sum up the numbers. The average is going to give us the average among all 4 of those numbers. The max is going to give us the max number. So if we're just looking here in column B, it's going to give us the max number, and we know that it has to be 590 because that's the biggest number in this particular column. Then the min function is the smallest number, and just looking at these without even using Excel to compute this for us or calculate this for us, we know that 253 is the smallest number. And then lastly but not least is the count function. And the count function just counts how many cells are within that range that you're trying to calculate. So with that, let's dive in. So we come here to the sum, and I'm just put my mouse pointer and making this cell B14, my active cell. So how do we know I'm in B14? You can look on the cell reference box, and that lets us know. Or here's 14 and then B. So let's go over to the office ribbon, and you can either click, because that is the auto sum, or you can click the down arrow and then select sum as well. So you notice immediately we get what we call a marquee, and that will continue until we press enter. So we want this function, so the equal sum, and we have a parentheses, and then we have this closed parentheses, and then in between is the reference that we want the formula or the function to reference back to get the results or answers. So we're starting at B10 and ending at B13. So this one's correct, so we'll just press the enter key on the keyboard, and apparently summing all those numbers would give us $598.81. So let's proceed to the next function, which is the average function. So again, we're going to go back over here and click on average. And this time, you notice we have the equal sign, and then we have average, and we have our front parentheses, and then our last. But you notice the range that Excel is assuming we want is B10 through B14, but we don't want to include this 598. That was the total sum of the range earlier. So we would just go here to the end of that formula, or we could go right here to the formula bar. Just depends on the user. And we need to change this. If you guess to change that to B13, then you're correct, because we want to sum up, or in this case we want to see what the average of these four numbers are. So starting with B10 and ending at B13. So let's click here, delete off that 14 and then put a 3. And then you guessed it, press enter. And now we have the average number out of, or the average of all four of these numbers. Now let's move to our next, the max. Back over to the office ribbon, and we're going to go down to the max function. Select it, and again the same things happen, but this time it's including the average, and we don't want to do that. We just want the max of the range B10 through, again if you guess B13, that's correct. So we're going to take off the 15 and then put 13 there, and then now it's highlighting the exact numbers that we want to Excel to give us the range and the answer for the max. Press enter, and as we know, just looking at these four numbers, that 590 is the max number, so we know that formula is correct. Now let's go to our min. So we go to the min function, and again we got to do some editing. So for this example, we know we want 13 at the end because we're doing those four cells. I want to use the formula bar. So this is the formula bar. If you don't recall that, watch a previous video, you can see that. We come up here, and instead of putting 16, we just delete out, and we're going to put 13. Not 14, I meant 13. And then press enter. And now we have the minimum number, the lowest number. And just looking at those four numbers in those cells, we know that 253, like I mentioned earlier, is the smallest number. Now our last function on today is the count function. We go back to our functions, and then here's count numbers. We select that, and it's doing it again, right? So all we have to do, we know we need 13 here, so go and delete off 17 and put 13, and then press enter. And now the count for this particular cells in that formula, the count formula, is 4, and it's that simple, 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? So next I'm just going to use our fill handle to finish all those other formulas. So this is our sum, and if you want to know more about the fill handle, you can go back and watch one of my prior videos where I teach you about the fill handle. So do the same for the averages. We'll do the same for the max. And then for here, to save time, we're going to highlight both of those cells and then drag over, and it's going to do those as well. All four of these formulas or functions, and then did the same exact thing. So now we have our formulas here, and then let's just briefly do the sum. So instead of, and this just depends on where you want to locate your answers to your worksheet, or what your formulas, or what you're trying to do. So in cell P10, we summed up the okay, so we're going to sum up the rows. So we're going to sum up row 10, 11, 12, and 13. So you notice we have this first function, the sum, and we have B10 through O10. And again, we're summing up the rows in this example. So we press enter, and we have our first results. And then I'm just going to use the fill handle to sum all the others. And if we want to know if we did it right, you can select in P11, and you can see on the formula bar we have that sum formula. And the same thing for P12. Look on the formula bar and we have the sum function. And then our last row, which is row 13, we have B13 through O13, which is summed as well. So let's proceed to the average. Click our down arrow and then average, and then now we're doing the next row with the average. Now we're having the same issue like when we did our columns, where it's trying to include the sums and we don't want that. So we know we want to end on O. So in this example, instead of changing the row, we need to change the column. Okay, so we want this to say, instead of P, if you guessed O, you're exactly right. So we're going to put the letter O, and then we press enter. And you notice it doesn't matter if you have upper or lowercase, it's still going to get the job done. And you notice I did lowercase. Look in the formula bar, it made it into uppercase. So then we're going to drag down, and now we have the average for the rows, and 11, 12, and then finally 13. Now let's do the max. Go back to the formula bar, or the home tab, and then now we're going to go with the max. And once again, when we start our first formula, Excel is too smart for itself. It's thinking it wants us to include P and Q, which we actually don't. So you could go to your formula bar to edit, or right within the cell that we're in for the formula. But let's go to the formula bar this time. So instead of Q, we're going to put the letter O, press enter, and then there it is. We have, and if we look in this row here, that 590 is also the biggest number again, just like it was within the column B. Now let's finish those formulas, and if we want to make sure those were correct, we could click on the next cell below, which is R11. Look in the formula bar, and then there's the max formula. And then our min, the same thing. Let's get rid of that R, put a 0, press enter, and proceed to move on to our last equation, which is, or function, which is the count. And again, once again, we have to get rid of the letter, in this case, it's going to be S. Get rid of S, and we're going to again put O, because that's where we want the formula to end at. Press enter, and now instead of where earlier the count was 14, it was 4 within the columns, down in the rows, apparently there are 14 numbers. If we need to see if that's accurate, just count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So awesome. That concludes my lesson on the top 5 functions for beginners. Again, please subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.